Joining us is Tabaki MP and UNC Shadow Minister of Education, Mrs. Anita Haynes-Alleyne. Pleasant good evening.
Good evening. How are you and how are your listeners?
Well, we are fine. First of all, let me, of course, congratulate you on your recent commitment and hope that you enjoy until eternity.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. A lot has taken place. I mean, since we spoke, the budget, of course, that was presented. I believe education was about just a little over $6 billion. I'm correct?
Education and training in totality would have gotten $8.08 billion. However, the Education Ministry will be seeing the bulk of that to the tune of $6 billion.
6 billion. And of course, recently you weighed in on the to resolve the wage dispute at UE. This has been taking place. Give us some insight on that, please.
Yes, I mean, we've seen over time that this government has treated wage negotiations in a very callous manner. They don't understand that what negotiations are, which means that you have to come to the bargaining table with a mindset to meet persons halfway. Anybody that is living in Trinidad and Tobago right now understands that we've seen a rising cost of living, that you've seen persons having to try to stretch their salaries that much further. And so persons are saying, given the working climate, given what teachers and certainly the UE lecturers would have had to do to carry our education sector through the COVID-19 pandemic and after the pandemic, still managing and coping with learning loss, even at a tertiary level, that they deserve at the very least good faith bargaining. And you're not getting that. And so now they've had to resort to protest, they've had to resort to these types of actions so that they can have their voices heard. And I believe that the government, if you are saying that you are committed to an educated society, a knowledge-based economy, then you have to meet the persons who are charged with delivering that. You have to meet them halfway. And if you are not doing that, then everything else you're doing is just, quite frankly, lip service.
Yeah, but a lot that is being said, especially by the administration, the powers that be, does not reflect the reality that we are facing here on a day-to-day basis. I mean, let's go back to what the finance minister said when, of course, presenting the budget on the issue of education. He said that we, meaning the administration, has consistently recognized the importance of an educated society for growth and development. Our educational institutions have been creating a pool of individuals capable of charting the future in a growing economy. Some with entrepreneurial spirit have been able to set up companies and create jobs as employers. In this process, the quality of life of our citizens has been consistently improved. I mean, what's your take on that?
I addressed those statements very frontally in my response to the budget, because the fact of the matter is, right, if you live in Trinidad and Tobago in 2023, you understand what the difficulties are. We've seen declining examination result rates. We've seen persons struggling to attain tertiary education. Then we've seen persons who are coming out of the system find it very difficult to find sustainable employment. I have consistently asked for spaces where we can create that entrepreneurial spirit and have job creators. Our day-to-day lived reality just does not reflect that, because in order to be able to take the risk of opening your own business or investing in a startup company, what you need to have is a very stable and secure economic environment. And if persons are finding it very difficult to meet day-to-day basic living expenses, you are not in a space to take that risk. And so, I mean, the finance minister even quoted that we have the lowest unemployment figure at this time. But if you took a look at the persons lining up from midnight to join the prison service just a couple of months ago for the masses of persons we saw waiting to get the opportunity to join the international cruise system. If you just looked at that, you understood that we are not facing any kind of employment security in this country, where persons are searching for sustainable employment at any space that they can get. And so, I mean, you can say what you want in Parliament, and that is why I always try to house my responses in any debate in the facts and the reality that are facing the people of Trinidad and Tobago, because it is not good enough to use the House of Representatives, and I always try to remind persons that we sit in the House of Representatives. We are meant to represent the voices of the people and the reality facing the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and say whatever you want to make yourself look good when you are talking to persons who live in that reality, who live in day-to-day Trinidad and Tobago. And so you can't tell me, when I have to face in my office 25-year-old persons, 27-year-old persons who would have attained a university degree, applied for OJT, completed their 2 years, and are searching, waiting, hoping for any chance at employment, that meets up with their qualifications, and that they simply just cannot do that. And you are telling me that I will go back in my office and say, but unemployment is at an all-time low. It is not realistic.
And you're right, and that reflects the reality. I mean, that's basically it. You have people who simply saying, listen, I can't go any further, and you're right. However, I secure a job, even if it's outside of my field, even if it's for the pay is not attractive, I need to take it because there's no guarantee. And the minister also went on to say that we are now living in a knowledge-based economy and are pursuing an education system that is modern, relevant, technology-driven, and accessible to all with a digital transformation agenda. And he went on to talk about Wi-Fi access. But understand, this is the same administration. In the heights of the pandemic and coming out of it, the Prime Minister said that 2,000 plus students fell through the cracks. And of course, looking at it, these would be individuals who may not have had able to access these learning platforms, had no sort of electronic device, they weren't able to get the technology to go on. And now to hear the fact that this is now an education system that is going to be driven by technology, how seriously are we to take this?
Well, the 2,000 persons that you referenced in terms of the persons that have dropped out are those persons who have dropped out of the system altogether. They are no longer within the school system. But we have persons who would have constructively dropped out, meaning that during the pandemic at the Joint Select Committee headed by Senator Paul Richards, they discovered that there were some 47,000 students, 46,700 plus students who never accessed the online platforms, right? They never. So for 2 years, they were out of the school system. Now, they may have re-entered the school system physically, as in they are attending when they can. But without any targeted interventions, and the remedial program is not a targeted intervention, and I'll explain why. But without any targeted interventions, they would have constructively dropped out of the system. They are not able to keep up pace, because if you miss 2 years, right, you miss 2 years of school and you have to go back and start at the same space, you are going to see what we are seeing, where persons scoring below 30% at the SDA exam. And then they continue to be funneled through the system. They continue to attend when they can, if they can, because of issues with school transportation, issues with just the cost of attending school, right, which the $1,000 will not address in totality, but it's really just a plaster on a gaping wound. Then you have persons who are within the system, and you see the levels of school violence and stuff, so that the number itself belies the true difficulty that we are facing with persons who have constructively dropped out of the system as opposed to actually dropping out of the system. None of these things are being addressed, but we are calling out numbers, saying things like, yes, but we have these persons, we deliver 2,000 laptops, and I've raised it over and over. If we are not evaluating the effectiveness of the intervention, then we are just kicking knocking the problem later down so that we pretend it does not exist this year. We pretend it isn't that bad next year. And then all of a sudden, we are facing a crisis of a generation. And so listening to the minister talk about who has access to Wi-Fi and access to it, listening to the minister who I had to go on the record to correct, talking about examination results would have been consistently declining since 2010. That is a factually inaccurate statement. That they would have taken things away from the system, taken away the continuous assessment component. The continuous assessment component within the examination system allows for students who are not good test takers, but who understand the material to, over the course of the term, show their competency by way of projects, smaller exams, etc., taking away the pressure of a testy, which does not apply in the real world and has been a proven system in terms of assessing education levels globally. They took that away. Now they're trying to secretly bring it back.
And I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. And this is the thing that hurts me. I mean, I think education, just like crime, should never be played out as some political football. It does
Absolutely
nothing
not.
for the growth and development of our country. And the mere fact that we have students who are now definitely limited as far as growth, as far as being able to compete on the global market, something is wrong. And we will pay a price for that sometime in the very near future. And going back to what you said, the minister said it to 2010 to the present and even before reveals a consistent and troubling percentage of students who do not achieve 50% or more in the exam. And this is not to say, according to him, this is not to say that the levels of student achievement in the country have undergone a sudden decline since. As evident from data worldwide that you mentioned, the COVID-19 pandemic had a negative impact on the education system. We were, of course, not expecting, according to him. But he goes on to say that the experience of students who spent 2 years away from the physical classroom during the COVID-19 pandemic with an associated learning loss pointed to the urgency of the need for transitional programs. We immediately introduced the vacation remedial program in 26 secondary schools to address this learning loss. But there's no mention here of making a serious assessment to find out exactly who were these students. Who were the ones that were directly affected? The ones who couldn't access the learning platforms, the ones who had no laptop, had no device whatsoever, and then to turn around and said that having to introduce a vacation remedial program without making an assessment, basically is this just a game of numbers, or is this basically playing, smart with foolishness?
I always maintain that when you spend money without assessing the problem, assessing the data around the problem, you are not actually doing anything. That vacation remedial program in its first instance was enacted during the July-August vacation of 2022. The target was some 9,000 students who scored below 30% in the examination, not 50, 30%. And the persons, there was the actual attendance was somewhere around 2,000 persons, and that is persons who just attended. We don't know how many persons completed the program. We don't know how many persons would have gotten to the level required to attend secondary school. We have no numbers like that. I filed a question in Parliament. We are still awaiting the answer, which just shows me that no such testing, no such data analysis was done. And so then they decided this is good enough, so we'll expand the program. You are expanding something without telling the population this is how well it works. These are the changes we make, etc. And so this is what I'm saying. When you are approaching this from a face value space as opposed to a substantive space, we are doing a disservice to a generation of Trinidadians and Tobagonians.
Yeah, I think there's a serious disconnection as well. I mean, just based on what the minister said during that budget presentation. He said that they are quite aware of the difficulties that needy families face in acquiring school supplies for their children, including uniforms, shoes, book bags, stationery, and books. I wish he had put meals as well. But anyhow, he said they are aware of he's also aware, the administration is aware, of the ever-changing book lists, which are unwarranted in areas requiring little change, especially in the subjects of the science and the chemistry and what have you. He says these continuous additions and alterations to school book lists make it virtually impossible for generational use of textbooks and create additional yearly expenses for families. I mean, this seems to have brought something into to the spotlight for the administration, when in fact, this is something that has been occurring for quite some time. I mean, there's a serious disconnection there. He says that in 2024, they're going to consult with all the stakeholders and eliminate the practice of unnecessary new textbooks arriving on the curriculum every year because it's putting too much of a strain on needy families.
You know, this is a government that has been telling us about an e-textbook platform for at least. This is an administration that removed the scrapped the laptop program, saying it was not good, but then never delivered an alternative digital education program. So this so that when you hear what it could only be the minister that has had a recent discovery on the textbook issue, that, and you make this big announcement, and you expect to see progress over the next year. And it is difficult for me as a person who genuinely cares about the people of Trinidad and Tobago to say that we are likely to see no movement on this, because you need it outside of just the announcement. You are looking at curriculum development. He is now starting the process of consultation, or they are now thinking about starting the process of consulting stakeholders. He said it himself. You know, and so what have you been doing for the last 8 years in government? It's one, you now discovered as an issue. When the People's Partnership Administration had already started on building out a platform for e-books, right, and an e-learning platform. You scrap that, and now you are going backwards to start the consultation process. I mean, listen, it is a difficult pill for the population to swallow, but the truth of the matter is that the last 8 years have been a space where we have gone backwards in terms of our progress.
Yeah,
we have seen things in decline. We have seen an education sector in reverse. And it is going to take forward thinking, it is going to take innovation, it is going to take very serious political will to change course and get back into a space where we could have been had we not had the last 8 years of government.
Yeah, I couldn't say it better myself. And there has to be some concern from not just the stakeholders, but from citizens themselves, knowing and you know, feeling this sense that our students are not being treated in a manner that they should be. I mean, we're talking about a human index here. We're talking about our growth as a people moving forward. And yet still you have an administration that is not giving to them. I mean, if you look at even the People's Partnership, you had people who were getting a bachelor's degree in welding, aviation training. So many doors were open. And of course, those doors have been closed, whether by political spite or whatever the case may be. But again, I don't believe that crime and education nor health should be used as a political football for anybody to gain traction, only to show up whoever they need to show up, because at the end of it all, our students are going to suffer in this entire equation, and it's really unfortunate. Any closing comments? Go right ahead.
Certainly, I agree with you. I think that the population, all citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, need to realize that we are the key stakeholders in this discussion. All of these decisions, non-decisions, inaction, they affect us, and they affect us greatly. And I've heard for many years persons saying, well, I don't care about politics, that doesn't affect me, but now you are seeing the policy makers, persons that you put in charge of making decisions in this country as an executive, the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, they affect every facet of our daily life. And if you would like to have a better life, a better livelihood, a better quality of life, it is time to start paying attention and recognizing your space as a key stakeholder in every discussion facing our country, and realize who is giving you plans and policies to take you forward, who has an idea of development, and who have also had a proven track record of acting on those plans, and who really just does not.
All right. I want to thank you so much. Again, congratulations. Keep up the good work. All the best of luck to you and your entire team. And we'll be speaking, of course, periodically.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Take
much.
care.
Thank you.